Hi, I'm Rick Belden, and this is Masculinity from the Inside Out, an exploration of the inner lives of men. If you find this content valuable, please like, share, and ring the bell for notifications. Thank you.
Practices to reconnect with the inner child. Initial first practices.
Well, one of the things that happened for me was a fairly big thing, which is that I'm going to try to summarize this and then get to the point. Um, I was very interested in Iron Man when I was like under the age of 10 or 11. The Iron
Mhm.
Man comics. Iron Man was not popular when I was a kid. Iron Man's super popular now, but he didn't used to be. And I had all the comics and I was just fascinated with it. And that was one of the things I ditched. I got to a certain age and it was just like, oh, comics aren't cool, and just give those away. And when I was 28, 29, somewhere in that range, I started having tons and tons of dreams about Iron Man. They just wouldn't stop. And I decided, okay, I'm going to go into this and find out what this is about. And that's what actually got me started down the path that I'm on now, talking to you, was actually reconnecting with that interest that I abandoned uh, at that age because I felt like this isn't cool. I don't want people to know about this. And
Yeah.
it was such a, it connected with something that was so fundamental in me that it came back when I was older.
Yeah. Oh, so interesting.
So if there's something that you liked at that age that you gave up um, because you felt like there was social duress, um, see if you still like it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's this back and forth, right? One thing that you told me one time in a not on camera was that um, the one thing that you may find is that you at that age will you phrased it like it will help you learn how to communicate with that version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
um and so that really resonated with me because I have felt that I mean, it is no different than whenever you go into a meditation or you go within, eyes closed or eyes open,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. And you sit with these aspects of your being, these energetic aspects of your being that are 9 and 10 years old. To connect with them, you find you find a voice in a perspective that's appropriate. You come into their world just as if
Mm-hmm.
they were a real life right here beside you, 9 year old, and you wanted to actually connect. Um and when you're really in it, that 9 year old, 10 year old version of yourself is gonna speak back to you the way that you would have really responded. And um I don't know the how profound that is. I really can't even grasp. But
Yeah.
it does something in that not only do I truly feel like the inner child teaches me more so than it's like I'm going in and healing the inner child. I really
Oh, yeah.
the inner
That's
child is like teaching me.
that's critical because regardless of whatever age we're talking about, where something has become stuck or it's been frozen or it's been hidden, the point is not to go into it and basically do something from the top down to do a state change for it. The point is to
Important
get the
to know
yeah,
because
the point is to get the information
hmm
that aspect of you has that is that's going to help you in your life today. Because I talk about this all the time. These earlier aspects of ourselves that get sort of stuck or frozen in time, and they have unmet agendas. They're pulling levers and pushing buttons on the surface all the time in our lives. And so, one of the ways that shows up is like if you're challenged, you get triggered, you're upset. Ask yourself, what age am I right now? Because a lot of the time you're gonna like, it's like I'm 63. It's like I'm not 63 right now. You know, I'm 12 years old and feeling like uh, I'm not secure in my masculinity because of a comment that a girl said, or because I got rejected, or I got a look, or whatever. It's like that's always a good entry point to those earlier aspects of yourself. Is like when you feel yourself getting upset and it's out of proportion to what's going on.
Mhm.
You can just ask yourself, how old am I right now? And that'll get you in there. And like I said, any sort of interest that you used to have that you abandoned because you thought for whatever reason this isn't okay, it's not cool, it's not masculine, whatever. So for example, you could watch some Sailor Moon and see what kind of things come up for you, because things will get stimulated that will kind of put you back in that time and that age. And some of it might just be like fun nostalgia, and some of it might be, wow, I forgot all about this, or wow, this was actually part of a decision that I made that made me feel like, well, if I don't do this, then I'll be okay. I'll be seen as okay.
As confused as the mind is, it is on your side. The mind is trying constantly to get you to a state of optimal being. It just doesn't know what it's doing. And I say that to preface this statement, which is that, like, you will, we will actually want others to push themselves away, so much so that I've found myself, many of us have found ourselves resenting or judging another that doesn't assimilate in the same way. The person that is the misfit, the person that is uh, the black sheep that doesn't fit in with the crowd, the person that stands out from the group for being whatever we would perceive as quirky. And also on the other side of that, we judge the people who, just like us, want to bully or push that person away from who they really are, won't accept who they really are. And you know the, basically the saying of, like, that which you judge in another is that which you are judging within yourself. Well, that operates from both sides, whether you're like looking at a situation and saying, like, oh, that's not right, that shouldn't be doing that to them, or whenever you're the one that's being like, I can't believe this person has this attitude towards that, toward whether they're like racist or have a certain view that you claim to be out of. It, like, really, that emotional charge shows you not on just the side of the victim, but also on the side of the offender, like where you have really pushed yourself away.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the key question that you can ask yourself in terms of the discussion we've had today is, did I make decisions and did I create narratives for myself at these ages that we're talking about that actually limit me in my life today? Narratives and decisions that made sense at the time. So, for example, in my case, so sensitive, I didn't have boundaries. I had to stop all that input. I had to stop it as much as I could. It was a good decision at the time. Is that a good way for me to live now? It's not. So what do I do about it? Well, part of what I got to do about it is I've got to get into some kind of communication with that part of myself that still believes that that's the right way for me to live, so that I will not be hurt.
And here's the thing, as you go into this, be ready and be willing to allow your personality to transform and release parts of yourself. Whatever needs to be released, be willing to let that go, because if at the foundation you sacrifice yourself, now you built 10, 20, 50 years of life from that purview, from that way of being. And so as you, it's like a Jenga. As you pull that part out, you've got a whole set of memories and ideas and views and beliefs and perspectives that are ultimately going to go down too if you let them, because you pulled out everything that they're built upon.
Right. Right. So,
Rough, but worth it. So worth it.
but exercise care with that process, because there's a structure there.
How can you exercise care for yourself with that? Because it's hard when that happens, and there's a lot of shame and guilt and stuff too.
Right. Well, I guess what I would say is, like, you don't have to pull the bottom piece out first. Okay. So, like, you can kind of do this in a surgical way. You can pace yourself. You can pay attention to yourself. So, for example, to extend the model, maybe there's sort of a central spire in that Jenga, and maybe there are some smaller ones around it. So maybe you start around the edges and sort of build your way up to it. Because it's as you said, it took a long time so for example, I talked about the swearing thing. I am trying to cut it back. And how do I do that? Well, when I notice myself doing it, I ask myself, what's motivating you to do this? Well, I want to impress that guy. It's like, that isn't happening right now. Okay. But rather than try to just like bulldoze my way through it, I'm going, okay, this is a long-term project. This is going to take a while. It's a deeply ingrained pattern that I have. And the motivation in the moment is to show people I'm tough. I'm tough. You can't mess with me. I'm tough. And when I use these words, that tells you I'm tough. And that's old. That's something that I acquired when I was 14 or 15 years old or whatever. So how do I approach that? Well, I set my intention to actually, when I'm going to use those words, to use them consciously. Like, there's a reason why in this moment I'm going to use that word, as opposed to I'm feeling insecure, and so I'm just going to like drop a bunch of F-bombs, because that way I'll feel like I'm solid enough that people are going to see me that way.
And man, and whenever it's literally, as you learn to tune in, as we learn to tune into that, like the body. And if you don't know how to do that, we have an earlier video titled Emotional Awareness in the Body. That runs parallel to this. You can feel when you're expressing a part of yourself that's not true. And if you follow that feeling, maybe you're not yet conscious of the memory that you were cussing to impress your friend. Maybe you're not conscious of that yet, but that feeling will lead you as far in the memory bank as you need to go. I'm not saying that every time that we're going to get a direct memory of it, but you will remember that it ain't really you. You'll remember that you picked it up in terms of maybe you'll see a trend, maybe it won't always come back to a memory. A lot of times it does, though, especially if it's like something very big. Right. But it doesn't, what I'm saying is just because you don't find a memory in the file, that doesn't mean like that you can't still work that out of your behavior, because we can feel whenever we do or say something that's like not from this like place of alignment, that's like not really us. And maybe you've been doing that. I've been here. Maybe you've been doing that so much, so habitually, that you actually even have to remember the feeling of being yourself, where an aspect of you doesn't feel like a fake, a liar, a pretender.
Right. Yeah. And
it all works together.
Yeah, exactly. Those are all great points. And I guess the last thing I would want to say about it is also bear in mind that when you're dealing with that aspect of yourself, you're dealing with an aspect of yourself that's inherently insecure. So I think it's important to approach it in terms like I just did, where it's like, hey, look, man, that was a good decision. You made a good decision. That was the best strategy that you could come up with at the time. It's not so good right now. So let's see if we can do something different instead. So in other words, don't pile rejection of that part of yourself on top of a part of yourself that was already insecure, and that's why it made those decisions.
in your tone that you just expressed, you're meeting yourself with compassion.
Yes.
Meet yourself with compassion because you were only ever doing the best that you can do. You were
And
only, but now you know that you can do, like you said, that this isn't working so great anymore. Not like you should have, you should have never done that. That was awful. Your inner child isn't going to respond to that. Your inner child did the best it could.
no, because now you can be we had an earlier discussion about mentoring. This is how you self-mentor. You can present yourself as you are now as the adult that could have been helpful to your earlier self had someone been around like that he could talk to, because that's what's really lacking to sort of close the loop on this and resolve it.
I don't have kids yet. I don't have a family yet. So I can't say this only but with so much truth, but I've felt it from interacting with the kids who I coach and mentor. And you become a better coach, you become a better mentor, you become better at relating to younger people through this process because of what you just said.
Right. And that takes it back to where we started, where I said I was so uncomfortable around kids that age.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is what we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that discomfort's been tested lately, because I still have a lot of work to do. That was a very um, that time in my life had a massive effect on who I am and the directions that I chose in life and all that kind of stuff. So I guess maybe that's the really last word on this. Is like I can just say that in my case, this is not something I've spent a couple of weeks on. This
Right.
is something I've been spending time on for the last several years, and there's there's a lot to unwind with it, and that's okay. That's okay.
And man, we, myself included, we all have a lot to do, a lot of work to do. And I think the paradox of it all is as you get into healing, personal growth, self-awareness, awakening, consciousness, however you want to label it, doesn't really matter. The paradox of it is as you get into this, you start to understand after a while that there is no end to it. You start to feel better, and you start to see the dividends that it plays in your life. Maybe you get here from a dark place where you need this, and then eventually the tone and flavor of this, it becomes a way of being as
Hmm.
you start to see that like it's elevating who you are. It's making your life better. Then it doesn't come from this paradigm of like I need to heal and fix and change
Yeah.
myself. It becomes the paradigm shifts to like I want to express myself through conscious growth because it feels good to constantly be a more aware human. And I've gone through that where in the beginning this felt like a punishment that I was putting myself through,
Hmm.
a search for worthiness, a search to get to a certain point. And then as I went through it, just want it started to feel better. It didn't feel like I was like trying to right all my wrongs and stuff. It started to become a practice that I enjoyed. And,
Right.
and I think that shift is important for people to know, like, because I remember how I felt in the beginning. It was tough and it was hard and it was shameful to honestly look at how I was showing up for myself and for other people in some ways. And I just want people to know that you'll come to a point where you celebrate this work in your life because it's adding so much to who you are and what your life is that like you'll embrace opportunities to like change and expand.
Hmm. I think that's yet another excellent point, which is that the whole idea that you're wounded and you're broken and you're healing something can be a trap.
Mhm.
Uh, and I think it's a productive way to enter the process initially. Uh, but I think as you progress through your process and you mature your process, if you hold on to that as being the end state,
Mhm.
you're going to get frustrated
Right.
and you're going to feel like you're not doing it right.
Right.
Whereas for me, this is the thing I work with clients on all the time. We're talking about your relationship with yourself. When we talk about your relationship with earlier aspects of yourself, when we talk about the way that you go about your life, the things you just said, it is your relationship with yourself that you're growing and you're progressing. and you're developing. And that to me that's just the process of being alive and being awake.
Mhm. Mhm. We'll end today on that note, Rick.
Okay.
Thank you as always, my friend. Really
All right.
appreciate it.
See you next time.
What's up? This is Chris Wilson. Thank you so much for checking out the content, and I hope you found value within it. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share, as it helps the channel grow and helps me continue my work of seeking deeper truths and sharing it with the world.